Welcome to Combat Uplink, presented by Matlock's Fight Talk.
UFC 327 is in the books. What an unusual card, but a very good one. A nice, warm feeling of nostalgia washed over me as this card progressed and even into the post-fight press conference because Dana, a little bit more animated in this one, so it felt much more like a classic UFC pay-per-view night. Aside from parading around political figures and showing them on the broadcast and the Kid Rock walkout, that kind of shit cannot end soon enough. Politicians are not cool. I don't want to see you in the venue. Just a bunch of dorks looking like dorks. Other than that, completely solid. Jiří Procházka and Carlos Ulberg. The fight was looking exactly kind of how I thought it would. Carlos chipping away at Jiří operating at range with him and then bull rushing. I will say Carlos was kind of putting himself in the fire right away, but we did see him back up to the cage, throwing that left hook and circling out. Gotta hand it to Carlos too, because right up to the point of his knee giving out, like I said, he was standing in the fire with Jiří throwing down. And it's almost like, to me, Carlos was gifted a shortcut to victory. I chose Ulberg to win this fight and I felt comfortable about a knockout, or maybe he wins if it goes to decision, but his leg giving out just caused Jiří to speed run the outcome for Carlos. Because instead of chopping away at Carlos, he essentially just puts his chin on a platter. And I think the entire MMA world collectively had the same reaction. I tweeted that this has to be one of the lowest IQ moments in MMA history. And I forget more than I remember in this sport. I'm an old guy, but it sounds like my peers also had the same reaction. I still pick Carlos to defeat Jiří in a rematch, and whether his leg gives out or not, I think an outcome similar to that would have taken place anyway. You could see it early on, but, maybe Jiří would have had more success. You never really know. Paulo Costa completely decimates Azamat in a standout performance at light heavyweight. A little bit surprising for me, but it really shouldn't be. I still don't know what to think of Costa at this stage of his career. He's looking good at light heavyweight, talking about maybe he'll move back down to middleweight. Doesn't make a lot of sense. He didn't change his nickname to Secret Juice. Doesn't make a lot of sense because he's selling a Secret Juice product too. Azamat, I'm surprised that he wasn't more prepared for this, because Costa just kind of looked like classic Costa. Southpaw matchup, open stance matchup, just read from the playbook and executed. So I think at light heavyweight, Costa has more exciting matchups and a lot more interesting path to a title. So that could be exciting. Hockett and Blades throw down in a historic heavyweight clash. Hey, I said it in my breakdown. I need to see more from Hockett, but assuming he fights like he did in his previous heavyweight bouts and doesn't let the moment get to him, he's going to be involved in some banger fights, win or lose against Blades. Hockett is going to be in exciting matchups. I was not quite expecting what happened, but now that I really sit and think about it, I shouldn't be too surprised about this one either. Blades isn't much of a puncher. He has a heavyweight, so he has power, but I don't think Blades is a knockout artist with devastating power. I know him to be tough and dangerous enough standing, so that's why I picked him via decision. But Hockett was getting hit with really clean punches, and he was able to take them, which doesn't fully check a box, but it does give us some insight that he has a chin. He does throw in combinations, his striking isn't too bad, but he absolutely leaves himself wide open for counters. So the question is, will another heavyweight be able to capitalize on those openings and put him out? Yeah, maybe. Heavyweight is pretty awful. What's going to be Hockett's primary weapon, and what will get him to the very top, I think, of this division is simply his conditioning. The pace that he sets and sticks to over the course of 15 minutes is very impressive. So I was kind of surprised seeing some people think Curtis would have more success wrestling, and I just didn't see that happening. I thought where Curtis's wrestling would come into play would pretty much strictly be defensively, sprawl and brawl. So when Curtis did try for takedowns, I was pretty confident he's probably not going to get them. Hockett is a wrestler and he's shorter. So even if he did get him down, he'd probably scramble out. So I just didn't really think it would be a factor in this fight. Excellent conditioning, excellent pace. Hockett is going to be a problem, and my question is, doesn't him and Gable Steveson both train out at Jackson Wink? And I'm hoping that doesn't become some kind of issue, because that's the fight to make down the road. We got Hockett and Gable Steveson, and of course Steve Asplund has to be in one of those matchups because that's going to be a banger too. Reyes and Walker is a fight that happened. My pick was Reyes. Who cares? My favorite fighter of all time, Cub Swanson, executes Landwehr. If you had no idea who Cub Swanson was, you'd never think you just watched a 42-year-old in a retirement fight. So impressive to me is an understatement. And Landwehr is tough. A notorious slow starter in round 1, but he can hang in there. On that night, Cub wasn't having any of it. And when Herb Dean stepped in, my knee-jerk reaction was one of disappointment. Because I was hoping it would go a little bit longer, but Nate was obviously out of it. I'm bloodthirsty. So congrats, Cub Swanson. Truly, they do not make him like Cub Swanson anymore. Best retirement in UFC history? For me, yeah, and it's not even close. Aaron Pico looked really good. I was a bit nervous in the first round. Pitbull was doing pretty good countering off the jab, but then Pico started being a bit more crafty with it. I was thinking it would be a second or a third round finish, and it looked like it might happen, but nonetheless, it was a good performance. Holland looked good against Randy Brown, but he doesn't secure the submission, and even when Randy Brown had almost nothing to offer in the third round, he didn't get a finish. So Holland always the wild card. Gamrot looked very good, got the finish as he should. I thought Ribovic might get some early success, but that was not the case at all. Suarez overcomes early adversity, and many people, including myself, thought Godinez might get the job done and knock her out. I ended up leaning Suarez simply because if shit hits the fan, she'll probably be able to grapple and win by decision. She gets the submission instead, so that was good work. Padilla and Medeiros. Alright, I have a hot take. I don't disagree with the draw. And I think a little too much was made of the forward pressure and pitter-patter shots of Padilla and not the actual exchanges. Medeiros did real well adjusting after the first round, throwing elbows to thwart that forward pressure. It is not at all a robbery in my opinion. It always sucks when the wrong outcome is announced, but sometimes shit happens. That's not on Buffer either. Which I thought was a weird conclusion fans were coming to as well. It's not Buffer's responsibility to know what the outcome is. It's his responsibility to read what is given to him. I'm sure that if the outcome he read aloud sounded questionable, he may have asked questions if he didn't, but a majority decision for Padilla isn't unreasonable. And I don't think a draw is either. Maybe if you mute the stream and quit listening to Rogan and DC, you may come to that same conclusion, or maybe not. I thought it was a close fight. Again, maybe it's a hot take for some of y'all. My boy Kelvin Gastelum had one of the worst performances ever, and I may need to come to terms that Kelvin just ain't that guy anymore. I would be happy with him competing as like a gatekeeper, journeyman, whatever you want to call it, but I think the bill has come due. I know for a lot of people you've been saying that for a long time, but maybe I'm just not giving enough credit to Luque as well, but I think the Kelvin of yore destroys him. Prado and Radke, not a fight I cared about. Radke got the victory, but not too impressively, I don't think. But that does it, a pretty good card. Matlock out.